How's it going, guys? It is Fake Thriller and Snooze603, and today we're here to tell you that there are only 8 days until Battlefield 4 is released.
Really cool.
And in today's topic, we're going to discuss Suppression and how we felt the changes in Suppression from Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 4 will either benefit or take away from the final game. So, Snoop, you want to start us off?
Dude, it is nothing but good. I know there are a few people that are always kind of hounding us saying that we're too negative or that we focus too much on the downsides of Battlefield 4. And I think that people misunderstand us, that we're not like hounding on it or bashing the game by any means. We just happen to focus on the bad things because we see where there can be improvement. And that's pretty much the topic of everything we do. We see something and we kind of just talk about, okay, well, maybe if they did this, that would be better.
To speak
in this
to that,
case,
yeah, it's just simple to talk about. It's more interesting to talk about things that you'd like to see changed as opposed to sitting there and praising everything that's great.
Yeah, exactly, because then there's nothing to add to it. I mean, you can kind of elaborate on what you like about it. And in this case, there's actually a lot to talk about, because I think what they've done with Suppression in Battlefield 4 is head and shoulders above and better than what they had in Battlefield 3. Everyone remembers in Battlefield 3, it was just insane how bad the suppression was, and it was really annoying. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there is actually a patch where they buffed the suppression, and that's why what we have for the final product is what that last patch regarding suppression gave us.
Yeah, suppression has been kind of a wonky issue, and I think it's been changed more than once. And it's like, it's one of those statistics that can be changed per weapon. So depending on what patch throughout the life of Battlefield 3, some guns have been stronger and some have been weakened.
Right.
But as a general rule of thumb, I think everyone sort of agrees that suppression in Battlefield 3 was just a little too much.
Yep. And the problem with it was that it created random bullet deviations. So there was really no way that you could go ahead and compensate for it when you were under heavy suppression. Whereas in Battlefield 4, they've done away with that and they changed the system. Now when you're being suppressed, all it does is actually change, scope sway, and obviously, if you're not using a scope, it still applies. It's just when you're aiming down sights, it kind of makes your aim down sights go a little screwy. But that's okay, because you can correct that yourself. Once you kind of get used to it, you can eventually figure out how best to correct it and get back within control.
And the other thing that they changed, too, is they've dramatically decreased the amount of suppression that is applied from weapons that aren't LMGs and I think sniper rifles, and we're just talking about infantry weapons. I think you do get suppressed from like tank rounds and stuff like that too.
Right, yeah, everything I'm talking about is strictly infantry.
Right. And one of my biggest gripes about the Battlefield 3 suppression mechanic, because first of all, I'm a huge fan of suppression. I find it to be one of like the best ideas in modern military first-person shooters. Just because of a game without suppression, the idea of bipoding up an LMG and slinging 200 rounds down range, and the guy just picking you off with a pistol is almost ludicrous. So the idea that you should at least be able to lock down areas by suppressing them with these fully auto rifles is fantastic. But the thing that used to drive me crazy is it wasn't always the absurd amount of suppression that would happen when you're being pinned down by an LMG. It's almost the minute amount of suppression that could happen if someone just happened to crack a shot in your direction, and then all of a sudden it's just a battle. It's like in Battlefield Friends, like the noob fight, when the two noobs are like like they're standing there they're trying to shoot each other, but you can't because you're both so suppressed. But it's like, that's what happens if somebody just happened to hit you recently. Like, the suppression used to take so long to go away, you don't even necessarily see the suppression effects visually on your screen, yet your bullets weren't going where they were supposed to, where you would think they would go. I have those derp moments where I'm thinking I got this guy dead to rights, but I just don't hit him. I empty the entire magazine and I miss. I noticed a severe lack of that in Battlefield 4, which is great, because suppression should only be applied in certain extreme cases, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I feel like they didn't really know how to go about fixing it, and maybe they couldn't fix it in Battlefield 3. Maybe there's just something about it that they couldn't really make it specific as to the way it was in Battlefield 4, so we were just, we ended up with what we ended up with. I know that was kind of an anticlimactic way of putting it. But with Battlefield 4, it seems like they definitely put the thought into that ahead of time, and they made it so it made a lot more sense. Like I agree with you. An LMG, while playing in a modern military first-person shooter, it should lay down all sorts of suppression because you're getting constantly slung with like heavy artillery fire. Like it makes sense, but.
Right.
It didn't make sense in Battlefield 3 when, like, the PP-2000 had the same effect.
Right. And you lose the fight because they just happened, like, I don't know, like, because suppression creates this random effect, which is the bane of competitive play, by the way. Not to bridge the gap into another topic altogether, but in terms of being good at the game, the last thing you want is a random factor that you cannot prepare or compensate for after the fact.
Right, I agree.
Which is what suppression was doing in Battlefield 3, but now it's sort of, it seems like it's leveled out, and I'm really interested to see how it plays out once we see the full lineup of weapons and finally get the stats from Synthic as to what actually does what.
Yep. So, I mean, I think that's it. I think we can wrap it up. It's one of those, of all the things we discussed so far, as far as suppression is concerned, how they changed it for Battlefield 4, I'm giving it A+, 2 thumbs up. I think that they've made fantastic changes with it, and I think they're going in the right direction. They've kept some of the suppression, so it kind of offers a sense of realism to the game. Like, obviously not like reality realism, but it's not arcadey like something like a Call of Duty shooter where there is no suppression. There's something there that kind of makes sense to it.
Right, firing rounds isn't always just pointless. Like,
exactly.
You can do things like acts of desperation by firing to maybe get away or something like that. It's cool. It's a good feature.
Yep.
So guys, that's it. Let us know what you think of suppression, either in Battlefield 3 or in Battlefield 4, because everybody loves to talk about suppression. It's always a very hotly debated topic. And this is going to serve as your reminder that now there are only 8 days left until Battlefield 4. And we will see you in tomorrow's video.
For those that are fans of the Battlefield Friends show, as well as other shows by Hank and Jed and Johnny Ethko, you should head on over to their store and check out all of the awesome merchandise they have to offer. Hell, you can even have the Noobin Gang sing Happy Birthday to a Friend. It's all in the store, so head on over to take a look, or someone's going to throw ammo at your face.